Amonkhet pre-release is finally here. This weekend, countless Magic players will head down to their local game store to celebrate everything that is awesome about this game. Before we get into our pre-release guide and tell you everything you need to know, let me make one point perfectly clear. Pre-releases are amazing. If you've never been to a local game store, you're thinking about going to a new one, nervous about playing in an event for the first time, the pre-release is for you. These events are the best and most exciting events all year in a store. You get players of all kinds at these events. Sure, there will be competitive players, but it's a pre-release. Even they understand that everyone's there to have fun. So if you're thinking about attending an event for the first time or at a new store, a pre-release is the perfect time to start. When you head out to your pre-release event, I always suggest you prepare yourself ahead of time with a few key items. First, paper and a writing utensil to keep track of life totals. Second, sleeves. You'll want to sleeve whatever deck you make and sleeve the important and valuable cards you open, so bring sleeves. Third, food and drink. And by food and drink, I don't mean a fajita from Chili's and a Guinness. I mean a bottle of water and something to snack on. Apple, granola bar. I enjoy a good Nature Valley bar every once in a while, but that's just me, you do you. Fourth and final thing you need to bring, yourself, but your clean self. This isn't specific to any gender or any particular group of people. I'm talking to literally all of you human beings. Pre-releases take a while, and you're going to be sitting with a bunch of people in close quarters for hours. If you can, take a shower before leaving. You'll be doing the world a favor. Now, let's talk about the event itself. The Amonkhet pre-release, like most pre-release events, is a sealed event. After you sign up and pay your entry fee, you'll get one of these fancy boxes. Super pretty. In this box, you'll find the following: 6 sealed booster packs of Amonkhet, 1 foil pre-release promo card that can be any rare mythic in the set, a pretty snazzy 20-sided die. This particular one looks real nice. I'll be looking forward to getting that. And you'll get this 5 Trials of the Gods card. What makes the Amonkhet pre-release different from normal pre-releases is that you can complete these trials for legitimate prizes, like stuff you might actually want. For instance, the Trial of Solidarity. If you bring a friend to the pre-release with you, you can get a 4-sided Amonkhet die as a prize. Now that's something I might be interested in. So with all of that said, what's next? Well, let's get into it. In this pre-release event, you open all 6 of your Amonkhet packs in your pre-release foil and make the best 40-card deck you can with what you open. You can't use any other cards besides what you open in the exact box you received. Nothing from past events, nothing from people around you. If the flying spaghetti monster comes down from the sky and gives you an Aketra, you cannot use it. I think that was clear enough. Anyway, stores usually provide basic lands for you to use whichever colors you need. All you have to do is figure out what you want to play based on what you open. You can make a deck over 40 cards total, but I don't recommend it. 40 cards, 22 to 23 non-land cards, 17 to 18 lands. Stick to this, they're numbers to live by. Now for the building itself, that's where I come in. It's time to jump into the deep end and talk Amonkhet Limited. Let's begin with some universal truths. Removal is always good. When you first open your packs, if it seems overwhelming to you, separate your cards into colors and see which colors have the most removal. Being able to deal with powerful threats in a limited environment is one of the most important parts of success and fun. Trust me, you don't want to deal with your opponent's bombs if you don't have to. Removal is a great place to start. Whether it's Cast Out in white, Final Reward in black, Electrify in red, or Cartouche of Strength in green, I don't care. It's all removal, and it's all relevant, so be sure to separate those key cards to see where you're strong. Chances are you're going to want to play at least one color where you have a decent amount of removal. Second universal truth, your bomb cards can't carry you alone. It's the unfun answer, sure, but just because you opened Ronas doesn't mean that he can carry your deck. If the rest of your green is a garbage fire, Ronas isn't going to be able to fix that for you. So make sure you don't get tunnel visioned on a solid bomb if you don't have the support for it. There is an exception to this, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but for right now, just remember, if you're playing green because of Ronas, and you don't draw him, what else is there for you? Something to think about. We have to take some time to talk about mechanics because there's something different going on here. Each of the mechanics in this set has a specific use. Most of them are straightforward, which is good, but unlike previous sets, you don't have to build entire archetypes around them. They kind of just fit into good limited decks. I'll explain one at a time. We'll begin with Aftermath, the most controversial new mechanic. Players think this mechanic is terrible, and from a standard perspective it is a bit lacking, but in Limited, these cards can be quite powerful. So when you're building your deck, you can look at the multicolored Aftermath cards as little bonuses if you end up in their colors. Of course, most of them are still okay at best, but here are the few split cards I think are worth paying extra attention to. Start to Finish, and Destined to Lead. We're not talking rares here because rares in the right colors are slam dunks, but as far as uncommons are concerned, these are the two I really like. I'd put a priority on these if you open them. Again, pretty straightforward mechanic, it fits into a normal deck just fine. Next up is cycling, and this comes with a huge warning. I'm not the first creator to make this warning, and I'm sure I won't be the last. Do not include a card in your deck just because it has cycling. Does cycling add value? Yes, of course it does. It creates a lot of flexibility for you in case something doesn't work out, but just because you have an oh crap button doesn't mean the card should be in your deck. Don't just put in cycling cards because they have cycling. Make sure that you include cards that when cast actually do something you want. Cycling in Limited shouldn't be something you strive to do, it should be a backup plan in case your primary use for the card didn't work out. This means that you're going to want to avoid simply bad cycling cards. Don't let the mechanic trap you. For instance, Compelling Argument, probably not great in this limited environment. Cycling doesn't make it good. Same with Violent Impact, I hate this card, you should too. Cycling shouldn't change that. If you magically open enough Hecamus Sentinels or Pitiless Viziers, then maybe we can talk, but you're going down a very dangerous road, especially in Sealed. I'd save that kind of craziness for Draft. Overall, cycling is great, we all know that, but don't let it cloud your better judgment when trying to decide if you should play a card or not. Next up is Embalm, and this is not going to take long. I think Embalm is insanity incarnate. I think it's one of the strongest mechanics to come out of a set for Limited in a long time. Embalm creatures are literal 2-for-1s. They die, you bring them back as good as they were before, except wrapped in bandages now. It's just pure value. Embalm has a respectable presence in white and blue in the set, but that shouldn't really matter much. You don't need to build around the mechanic for it to be good. For instance, Unwavering Initiate isn't exactly exciting, but it's a card that creates a 3-2 with Vigilance twice. Therefore, it's playable regardless of whatever else you're doing. And because you know you're going to get the creature back again in the future, don't be afraid to get a little rowdy with your Embalm creatures. Let them go into combat. You have another copy on the way anyways, right? It's about card advantage, and these future mummies provide plenty of it. Trade half of an Embalm card for one whole card of your opponent's, I'll take that action. Embalm doesn't need anything to be good, it's just good itself. And that's all you really need to know about Embalm. I'm not even joking, it's just a great mechanic. That leaves us with Exert, absolutely the most complicated mechanic we're dealing with in this set, and it isn't because of the mechanic itself, it's because of what the mechanic forces you to do. Exert is the quintessential cost-benefit analysis. You have to decide which you need more, a blocker next turn or something now. The problem with this is that there's no universal answer. Literally every single time you have to decide whether or not you're going to exert something is an independent and important decision. I wish I could be more specific, but I really can't, so here's my best overview. When you're about to exert a creature, think about the next few turns. Decide if it's worth it to have your shields down. That's how you have to look at it. Is your exertion right now worth a weaker future turn? Beyond that, there are some cards in the set designed to synergize with Exert creatures. We're looking at Vizier of Tumbling Sands, Jeru's Resolve, cards like that. And when you build your decks, definitely look out for these, but Exert is another mechanic you don't have to build around. It simply fits well into most anything. Takrop Elite, decent anywhere. Battlefield Scavenger, doesn't need anything. Hooded Brawler, solid. You get what I mean? Decent cards, you don't need anything to make them good. Technically, -1/-1 counters aren't a mechanic, but they might as well be, given how they're everywhere in the set. Here's what you need to know. -1/-1 counters are primarily found on black and green cards, and those two colors also seem to have some pretty high toughness creatures, which is going to be useful considering a lot of these counters have to be placed on your creatures. So something to keep in mind. If you end up with a bunch of Soul Stingers, Crocodile of the Crossings, or Defiant Greatmaws, think about including cards like Dune Beetle or Giant Spider. Really anything you can dump your counters onto if you want the immediate benefit of these fatties. Because aside from cards that actively remove -1/-1 counters, there's not much you can do once they're there. There's no +1/+1 counters in the set, so you're kind of on your own. I will say if you do end up with a lot of -1/-1 counter shenanigans going on, consider white as a second or third color. It has Those Who Serve, Supply Caravan, Anointer Priest. Plenty of cards to throw your counters onto. It's definitely a synergy worth paying attention to if you end up having the right pieces. Now, even if you don't have these counter outlets, that doesn't mean these counter-granting cards are bad. You still want to play them because they're powerful creatures that give you nice flexibility when they enter the battlefield. Again, you don't need synergies, but they're helpful in this case. We're going to go way more in depth in our draft guide, but to help you out at your pre-release, here's a quick run-through of the best general commons and uncommons, not including removal. We all know removal is amazing. Having these cards in mind should help you decide which colors to play. Fanbearer and Takrop Elite are my favorite white commons. True Heart Duelist, and a Ketra's Attendant, favorite white uncommons. As you can already tell, I really value in Bomb. Unwavering Initiate is also a Bomb common, kind of forgot about that guy, but these are all good cards. Moving on to blue commons, look out for copies of Aven Initiate. Cat's already out of the bag, this thing's bonkers. I also firmly believe that the blue Cartouche is quite strong. Replaces itself, grants flying and +1/+1, sign me up. As for blue uncommons, pay special attention to Angler Drake, as it may be one of the best uncommons in the entire set. 6 mana for a 4/4 flyer is but being able to unsummon, oh baby, that's way too good. Lay Claim is the other bomb uncommon. Control Magic has been powerful and limited forever, no different here. Card is a bomb of all bombs, and you should never cycle it. Don't cycle it ever, it's way too good to cycle, don't cycle it. I'm not gonna lie, black is a bit of a disappointment this time around in the common slot outside of removal, of course. Wasteland Scorpion's okay, Horror of the Broken Lands is alright, I guess. I don't know, I actually don't like black non-removal commons. Uncommons, a bit better. Baleful Emit is crazy powerful, the counter doesn't mean much when it's still a 3/2 with lifelink. Put in that single counter on something else, and you have a nasty Crocodile Demon right there, huge fan. Beyond that, Stir the Sands and Gravedigger, both fantastic. They will both serve you very well, guaranteed high priority. For red commons, I'd have to say my favorite non-removal spell is Emberhorn Minotaur. Huge creature, deals a lot of damage and gives itself evasion when it exerts. You don't get to untap for a turn, but at the common level it's quite strong. Worth playing a couple if you get them. Also, Minotaur Sure Shot is fantastic, reach on a red card is always pretty nice, and it can get huge in the late game. Always relevant. 3 mana for a 2/3 that blocks flyers auto-include. Uncommon-wise, Crop Crasher is great in most any situation a red deck would find itself in. Crashes in for a lot the turn it comes down, and disables a blocker when you exert, quite good. And Blood Rage Brawler is just fantastic all the time. Yes, I know you have to get rid of a card when it enters the battlefield, but I do not care. It's a 2 mana for a 3, and if you can't use that card later, I still don't care. You're gonna play these. Super good, super aggressive, super powerful. Green commons are pretty alright. There are plenty of playables, but I don't think any of them are beyond crazy ridiculous. I like Naga Vitalist a lot. Hooded Brawler as mentioned previously. Greater Sandworm has value. Quarry Hauler is good. Green commons are decent. Now if we're talking about uncommons, they get even better. Green is doing its thing in this set, let's just say that. From the Crocodile to Exemplar of Strength to Scaled Behemoth to Watchful Naga and more, green uncommons have it together. I'm pretty impressed with the color overall. Again, we'll talk more about it in the draft guide. Okay, now the last thing we need to talk about, how many colors to play. I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you don't have any fixing of any kind, playing 2 colors is safest. Find your 2 deepest and best colors, get your 17 or 18 lands together and just go nuts. If you insist on playing a 3rd color, maybe for a few key removal spells, or a few off-color giant bombs, make sure you have mana fixing. This means that you have a few ways to generate that 3rd color of mana besides simply hoping to draw basic lands. Maybe you'll get a Bicycle land that has one of your colors and your splash color. Maybe you'll get Evolving Wilds or Painted Bluffs. Maybe you're in green and you have Gift of Paradise. You get the picture. If you're going to run a 3rd color, please make sure you at least have a few different mana fix options. Remember, by adding a 3rd color, you're reducing the consistency of your deck, so make sure it's worth it. And I think that's going to do it for our Amonkhet pre-release guide. Wow, now that was a long video. If you made it all the way to the end, be sure to leave a little heart in the comments. We'll all be part of the Cool Kids Club. So what do you think? Are you going to play in the Amonkhet pre-release? Is it something you enjoy doing? Gonna take a friend? Can't wait to hear all your awesome stories from the event. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, be sure to leave them in the comments section below and we'll talk about it. As always, thanks for watching and we'll see you next time. This video is brought to you in part by TCGplayer.com. We're only a week away from release at this point, which means that we're dangerously close to getting Amonkhet in our hands. If you still haven't pre-ordered your boxes yet, you can do that by clicking the link on the screen. $91 each, shipping included, that's the deal of the century. If you don't have a local game store or yours is charging way too much, TCG Player has your back. Just click the link, helps the channel. Good luck at the pre-release. Enjoy.
What?